So far you're wondering is if Together is worth your time. I can tell you it absolutely is, but there is some missteps along the way. But overall, this is a really solid horror film to add to a very solid year of horror. And here's my full spoiler-free review of Together. So this movie stars Alison Brie and Dave Franco, directed by Michael Shanks, and this is about a couple who is kind of becoming at an impasse with how far they're going to take it. They're in their mid-30s, they're trying to figure out their lives. Alison Brie's character just got a job in a remote kind of wilderness type of town, very small town, to become an elementary school teacher. And Dave Franco is still trying to become a musician in the big city. They're leaving behind their friends, they're leaving behind everything they know. And thus starts the movie off in this new small town. And they have to go for a hike, because every time you go to a new small town, you've got to go on a hike. And we all know that in a horror movie, when you take a hike, it's going to end up bad. I think the biggest strength this movie has is the on-screen chemistry between Alison Brie and Dave Franco, who obviously is a real-life couple. I think that they both give really solid performances in this, and I really think that that kind of carries you through really caring about these characters throughout the movie. Every once in a while, there's a misstep with the characterizations. I think Dave Franco's character gets a lot more backstory. There's really a terrifying, trauma-inducing backstory that we get hints of and get visuals of early in the movie that I think are some of the scariest scenes in the movie. And we kind of get that type of, Midsummer-esque backstory, you could say, with his character. Alison Brie, we don't really get to explore her character as much. I wish they would have done a little bit better of a job kind of fleshing out her character, no pun intended, fleshing out, because this is a movie about two people coming together, becoming one. But I do wish we could have got a little bit more from her character. She does great with what she's given, and I think she gives a really strong performance here, as well as Franco. But Michael Shanks directs this movie with extreme confidence. Like, I really liked the setup for the scares. This is not a slow burn movie whatsoever. I think the pacing is fantastic in this. I think that there's like scares throughout the movie. A lot of times you get a movie that starts off with a scare and then it takes forever to get to like the next one. There's like this impeding doom throughout the whole movie, which I really liked, and it pays it off throughout the course of the whole movie. So I thought they really spread out the scares a lot. They really spread out the tension a lot. And then by the time we get to the final act, they just throw everything at the wall, and it just becomes this wild, this wild body horror, glorified type of ending, I guess you could say, which a lot of people are going to be into. I think that it misstepped a little bit with inserting certain comedy to certain parts. I know it was supposed to like get a good laugh and kind of release that scare and that tension, but I wish they would have placed those a little bit differently throughout the movie. Some really good Spice Girl references in this, which I think were really well done. And this movie definitely plays into that metaphor. It definitely lets you know what the metaphor is throughout the whole movie. Like I said, codependent relationship, trying to figure out where one person begins and the other ends, and just trying to figure out who you are in a relationship, who you become when you're in a close relationship, what parts of yourself you lose and what you gain from the other person, and vice versa. And I think they did a really good job with that. There's a really nice, couple of really nice scenes where they kind of do just characters talking in a room, which I thought was really nice. It kind of let the pacing breathe a little bit, and I think that added to some of the scares. There's a really strong sequence in here where Dave Franco goes and visits Alison Brie at her job at an elementary school, and there's so much tension, so much comedy, and so much there in that scene. I wish we could have got that in other scenes throughout the movie, but that was, to me, like one of the strongest scenes where I felt like that tenseness. It had a perfectly placed laugh right there, and I think that was a really strong scene. And overall, this movie has a lot more positive than it has negative. I think just some of the missteps of it is like, a lot of times, by the time we see a movie, a lot of the marketing, which the marketing for this movie has been fantastic, but in essence, it gives away a few of the images and a few of the things, so you kind of are waiting for those scenes to come up. But I really don't want to take points away from the movie, because it's not really the movie's fault that it has to market itself. There's some really good moments here, man. There's some really good moments, some really good jump scares, some really good scenes with the characters. If you like body horror, you're going to get plenty of it. I do think there were some missteps with the body horror elements. I think once some of the melding was happening between the bodies throughout the movie, I think some of it just kind of took me out of the scenes a little bit. I wish they would have done a little bit better of a job with maybe some practical effects and stuff like that. But overall, it's not too bad. But it definitely, I think, could have been even better and created a more visceral response. I keep thinking about a movie like 127 Hours, where he's like cutting through his arm or something like that. We don't get near that in this movie. I just felt like they could have ramped up the tension in those areas a little bit better. And without giving anything away, this is a spoiler-free review, and I don't even want to call it a subplot, but there's another plot thread that becomes very important throughout the movie involving some other character. And I think that was super well done. I thought they could have even explored that even more, and I would have loved that. But I think the addition of that and that overarching narrative of what was going on was a big benefit to the movie to kind of explain what was going on and kind of add this like bigger thing and this more mystique behind what's going on with these two characters who, like I said, a trip in the woods and, you know, drinking the wrong thing, it kind of creates this nightmare scenario for them. So again, you're going to go see this movie because if you've seen the marketing, which I thought the marketing has been fantastic for this movie, I think they've really done some great things within the marketing for this. And as odd as it sounds, for a movie about two people becoming bound together, I think that they have made it about as commercial and mainstream as humanly possible, especially with Dave Franco and Allison Brie in the leads. And I think you're going to be happy with it. I personally don't think it's one of my personal favorite horror films of the year, but it's a really solid horror film. And I think it's one you should definitely go see. And if you've been intrigued by the trailers, you've been intrigued by the advertisements, I think you're going to go away happy. You know, if you're somebody who wants to see a good body horror film, or you want to go see a movie that's like, you know, got like a, you know, two really good performances and some good scares, just, you know, as weird as it sounds, almost like a good date night movie. As odd as that sounds, it actually has some really good romantic scenes and some really good love and affection to that relationship, that core relationship, which I think makes it a really interesting and fun date night movie, oddly enough. I think you're going to go away happy with this movie, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I wish it could have been a little bit more of fleshing out certain scenes and fleshing out certain characters. I think that would have added to my overall score of this. But if I had to give it a score, man, I'd probably give it a solid 7 for me. I think it was a 7 out of 10 in a movie that I definitely could see be on a lot of people's best of horror at the end of the year. Me personally, I think it was just a solid horror film, and one that I think was anchored by two great performances and great direction by Michael Shanks. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Together, and let me know if this is a movie you plan on checking out this weekend. And obviously, let me know what you thought of it. Love to get a conversation going in the comments below. I really appreciate you checking out this review. Definitely stay tuned for more movie reviews, movie news, just movie content on this channel. I hope you stick around. Give the video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more videos. Truly appreciate you watching. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.